always curves, but it's imperceptible at human scale. We already
You
talked about
just
this.
told. Okay, fine.
That may be true, but it's not immeasurable at human scale. Okay. We have
Imperceptible
equipment
with just
sufficient
your
to the task.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, with your naked eye, yeah, we all agree with that. You don't need to repeat it. We all understand what you mean. It's not kindergarten here. Okay, but it is measurable by the tools we possess. If it wasn't measurable by the tools we possess, then it wouldn't be the case that many globers are claiming they're measuring it with the tools we possess, such as theodolites and other type such things. So if it's the case that it can be directly measured, which it should be able to be by the tools we possess, such as lasers, etc., then all you have to do is arbitrate the one principle, and that is water level. If water level is indeed flat and not curving, then the Earth is flat, ipso facto, period. If water level is indeed curving, then the Earth could be a globe. So all you got to do, Josh, is just demonstrate to the flat earthers that the water's curving, and then you've proven that it's not flat.
Okay.
Well,
There's no argument. Real quick, there's no argument that water seeks level, and that in its equilibrium, water is at rest, and it's the definition of level throughout human antiquity. Like anybody who argues that just needs to be slapped upside the head with a mental stick, right? We all agree water's level. The globe claim is that water level is actually a curve around a giant ball, and not a level, flat, horizontal surface, just like we all experience from our direct observations.
Yeah, I mean in spherical geometry, level is just holding R constant, right?
Yeah, I know, and that's sure. I mean, you could write that on a piece of paper. Well, that's great and all. You could draw that on a piece of paper. Nobody doubts that. Nobody doubts that if you made a sphere with a 3D lathe machine, that you could then make a concentric circle around the sphere, right, and say that these two arcs are parallel to each other. No one's doubting that either. Okay, the problem is that's all theory. Practice is when you apply it to the actual Earth and prove that there's parallel arcs, one of which is the surface of water.
And the other, which would be a laser you shoot over it.
Why would a laser have a parallel arc to the surface of the water if it was curved? We think lasers just follow the curve of the Earth? Are you kidding me, dude?
It's traveling through a medium of specific pressure and temperature lines. Like I mean, you can say the R word if you like, but that's how these things work.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, and all of which your side claims that they know all about it. So give us the accurate model so we can use a laser and apply it and measure the sucker already, instead of hemming and hawing and having to listen to people like you saying, "Well, I don't know how I would prove it."
Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't done that. I appreciate.
I know we
listening to
agree.
y'all's experiments.
Yeah, no worries, brother. No worries. We understand. Nobody's done it. Okay, that's the real problem. Is that nobody's ever given any actual quote unquote the refraction model that we can use to understand what we're looking at. It's always a post hoc excuse of I see something that's geometrically impossible on this geometry if the Earth was this size. Therefore, I'm going to assume, based on the prior premise, I already know the Earth is a globe, that the light must have curved to reach my eye or my optic, therefore it curved. That's how it actually goes in reality.
Yeah, because in reality, folks have other sources of data that are beyond local long distance experiments or long distance observations. Like they have that premise. They lean on.
Yeah, they have this premise. I already know the Earth is a globe. And then when you actually test them on how they know that the Earth already is a globe, that's also stacked on a bunch of premises that also have to be proven separately, right?
Correct.
So we've never gotten down to the brass tacks of where's the foundation of this mighty, long, tall tower that's been built on the premise the Earth is a globe, when the premise the Earth is a globe hasn't been proven in the first instance.
From your perspective, yes. That makes sense.
Josh, so they're not leaning on it, they're kneeling on it and praying.
The leaning tower of hopes and dreams.
Just people, man.
He acts like
it is what it is.
We know the books are cooked. for them because they've been wanting this to get God out of it, and that's all there is to it.
Okay.
Right, so reverse the Uno card. You came here to sociologically study flat earthers. We told you straight up. You believe the Earth is a globe based on a whole set of presuppositions and premises that aren't proven in the first instance, that are circular reasoning, and a whole bunch of loop-de-loos. And when you're just asked to demonstrate that the surface itself is just actually curving through a direct measurement, you have no answer. And so, if that's the case, my friend, then you understand already the sociological phenomenon of why flat earthers are flat earthers. Because everyone
Correct.
experiences the Earth is flat and stationary, period. And
Correct.
someone like you who should know and should be able to help them out and give them the one truth to rule them all, that supposedly is the truth of all truthiness, which everything is founded on, that the Earth is actually a ball floating in space. You can't do it. So why do they care? I'll tell you why they care. They care because you're denying their experience. You're basically saying what you experience is a delusion. You experience the Earth as flat and stationary, but you're a delusional person for just coming to the conclusion, well, it's obviously flat and stationary, whereas you claim it's something that you don't experience. So who's the delusional one that should be
Well,
studied?
no, I think the delusion is not that. It's the extrapolation that because I my own observation, my own senses are telling me A, that A must also be correct at at a scale way larger than myself. Right. It's that faith in that extrapolation.
Yeah, cool.
I
So,
understand.
so basically, you just shot uniformitarianism in the foot. So, for example, the same thing applies to you, and I'm having a faith at scale that spectra in a lab and something that looks similar to that spectra coming from something which I can never go validate, I'm going to say is the exact same thing and functions in the exact same way based on that quote unquote extrapolation by faith. So, yeah, I would agree with you that your belief in the cosmos, where it is, what it's doing, and where it came from is just out of faith, borderline a religion, if not a religion de facto.
I can get down with that.
I know you can
You are
because you're an
down
honest
with it.
guy and you recognize that your worldview is a religion, and I applaud you for being honest.
I was gonna say where usually my head goes here is just diving into a pragmatic fallacy, which is
Pragmatic.
sh- no shit works. Therefore, the way
I
that
knew he was
it's
going to say
described to
that.
work,
People get their
right?
packages, therefore Earth is a
Yeah,
ball.
yeah, yeah.
That's
That
lunacy.
I understand that. I'm just explaining where my head's at.
Yeah,
Yeah, fair enough. So
lunacy.
I could also say the transverse is true, which is the alleged claim of the globe being a shape that actually has any impact in anything we do is so negligible that it's technically irrelevant. And even if you account for it or don't account for it, the end results will be that everything works within a small margin of error that's inconsequential for pragmatic ends. In other words, shit works. So we both have the same answer, dude. So the difference
Yeah,
is how you
exactly.
going to prove one or the other. Yeah. So the burden of
I'm not
proof is
going
on
to
you. I know that. I know you're not. That's how it works. That's how it always works.
because that's not my purpose.
Well, yeah, that's fine. So meanwhile, people go out, they measure with lasers, they use dual bands, they use multiple frequencies, they account for refraction, they apply PhDs in optics do it. All kinds of people go out, they measure the Earth, they find the hump of Earth curve isn't there, and so they know it's flat, and they know that you believe it's a globe, and so they're happy to go to sleep at night and have you sociologically crunch them because you're curious of why people don't believe in your religion. So cool. I think we solved it. So now you know the answers and the reasons for your sociological write up. So good for you. You win.
Well, there, like I said, there's a lot of nuances person to person, but I
Well,
think
how
I
about
think that's a good general thesis. I appreciate that.
so? When did you learn, person to person? When did you learn that you're participating in a religion during your time here?
No, I don't say I agree with you. I say that I
You said you could get
understand.
down with that.
Yeah, exactly. That
Define
doesn't mean
you
I agree with.
define. Please define. You can get down with that. I can't believe it's come to this.
I'm saying that perspective makes sense hypothetically to me. from from the person from the
But that's what
worldview
you're
of the person that makes.
demonstrating. That's what you're demonstrating. Every time one of your claims a thread is pulled, you say, well, I'm just believing it. So it's not hypothetical, it's what you are. Self-admitted.
Okay.
Okay. So you're the one that should be studying delusion.
Sure.
Okay, good.
So, guys, I'm trying to figure out here. So, our friend Josh here, especially early on in today's conversation, told us about 100 times that he didn't want to talk. He just wanted to do his laundry and listen to us, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like he continues to talk from almost a compulsion that none of us have controlled his microphone. None of us have forced him to transmit. All he had to do was just say, hey, guys,
I
I
never
can't
heard him
talk.
say that.
Now,
So
what is it, Josh, that keeps you coming around? Is this like a study for a course of study that you're doing? Like, what is it that has you continuing to return to us?
Well, I mean, I'm writing an IOC paper for not next year. I'll give it another year. I got already one cooking for 2026, but there's a big space conference every year in October ish, and I like doing independent research for it.
Are you going to be talking about the phenomenological expansion of the social phenomenon, of the social pretense, of the social expanse of the flat Earth movement?
No, I mean, I haven't really put together a full abstract yet of what I want to look at, but I think there's
Well,
some
You should
interesting
talk to Scott
correlations.
Mackey, brother. You should talk to Scott Mackey. He's been a quote unquote studying flat earther psychology, and he supposedly has psychological credentials in some regard. And he's putting
All right.
together this study. I just got
No, I
to
just
warn you though. Scott Mackey said that if the Earth turns out to be flat through direct measurement, he would check himself into an insane asylum because his belief is that he's concluded that the Earth is a globe based on its faculties, and if that was proven wrong, he must be insane. And he chose insanity rather than mistake. That's pretty weird, don't you think? I think that type of behavior should be psychologically studied.
yeah, I can get down with that as well.
Yeah, imagine the ego on yourself. There's no way I could be wrong about my premise of what the Earth is. So if it turns out to be wrong, I must be insane. And I'm literally going to check myself in an insane asylum. Then just admit I was wrong.
the funny thing is, Mackey, if past performance is indicative of future, he would even call you out on some of your bullshit, Josh. But yeah, include a chapter since you haven't decided what you're going to include in your writing. Include a chapter on yourself.
Oh, sure. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah, and
that's
include
like
a
right at the top.
chapter.
Chanting religious zealot thought they were
Fair enough.
speaking science.
Yeah, let's do something more important. Let's include in there that there is tensions between people, individuals, family members, sectors of politics, governmental agencies, social companies, et cetera, that are exacerbated by this not being definitively with a stake through its heart by a direct measurement of the Earth. And get some plea funding for a direct measurement of the Earth that can be actually direct. That's something that doesn't require a whole bunch of loop-de-loos and la-di-las, but it's just straightforward. Like, a structure like Brian Mullins, the engineer, came up with called Force the Line. It's less than $1 million in cost. You just need a piece of land and a crew to execute it. Or like the gyro box thing where you take a multimodal gyro system across 35 miles of the surface of the Earth. Sorry, 3,500 north, east to west, and then
Who's the Force the
1,500
Line
north to
guy?
south. Brian Mullen. Oh yeah, let me tell you real quick where he went. A Globe zealot decided to attack his family and his livelihood by attempting to get his license pulled, harassing his workplace, harassing his customers, basically saying, oh, because he's a flat earther, he can't be a competent engineer, right? That's what we've had to deal with, this sociological study that you're so interested in. I suggest you study Glober
I agree.
zealot crazy people and why they are so psychotic about the idea of flat Earth, why they are
It's
so
cognitive
visceral
dissonance.
and full of vitriol. Because rest assured, friend, people's mothers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, loved ones, spouses, children are flat earthers. Okay? Your family members are flat earthers. Everybody you know, there's somebody that's a flat earther. Do they deserve derision, hate, disrespect, being called that
No,
they
not
can't
at
have a
all.
job, et cetera, et cetera? Right. So why is it the case that that kind of nonsense is not only tolerated, but often endorsed in the public sphere?
To be fair, like I tend to go to bat for y'all pretty hard.
Good. So go to bat and say we want a funding for either Force the Line or the gyro box, which is,
What
by
does
the
that
way, just a
even
whole bunch
mean?
of gyros that are going across the surface of the Earth to be the longest continuous measurement of the surface in the history of mankind. So any of those types of things could be funded and just done, and it'll be over. Because let me rest assured, Will Duffy thought he was the savior of mankind, right? I'm going to save everyone from flat Earth, including flat Earthers from themselves, because being a flat Earther is morally bankrupt and you're poor and all that stuff. You know, all his ad hominem nonsense. And he said, the way I'm going to prove it is by going to Antarctica and looking at the sun. That's not a direct measurement of the surface of the Earth. That's why it wasn't final. Because what flat Earthers want, and if you want to help them out, you got to give it to them. You got to give them a direct measurement of the surface. So get some of that funding into that, because let me tell you what that's going to do for you, Josh. It's going to increase the esprit de corps to be tolerant of all this space nonsense and to be exuberant about paying money for it and to be like, yeah, let's do more of it. So it'll help you out.
What do you mean? I got to
Plus,
ask, dude. What do you mean? I'll,
one more second. Plus, you could write a big Amazon sticker on the top of the structure. Be like, Amazon finally proved the Earth was a globe through a direct measurement methodology that you can drive down I-40 and just look at with your own eyes. Look, there it is. Force the line. Clearly, the Earth's curving away from the level line structure. Boom, shabam, it's done. Amazon. Buy
Well,
now.
just
Subscribe.
making it very clear that my presence here and my this endeavor is 100% independent, has absolutely nothing to do with my employer.
Well,
dude,
fair.
what?
Then have the
Okay,
UN fund it.
what? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I'm glad.
What was the question?
But see, the problem is, brother. Instead of guys like you actually helping us out or helping the Globers out, either way you want to look at it, we got guys like Dr. Shiva, right, who says he wants to oversee the scientific method to prove the shape of the Earth, which is a category error. You can't prove the shape of the Earth with the scientific method. You need to just directly measure the thing. This is what we got to deal with on the globe side. We got to deal with doctors, right, in front of their name that are too stupid to realize that a direct measurement of something has nothing to do with the scientific method. These are the kind of morons we deal with, Josh. You see my problem? You feel my
Oh yeah,
pain?
they're awful. No, they're awful. I mean, honestly, like, Indio and Jin can tell you, I tend to call out bullshit Globers in the other rooms
Yeah,
as well.
but they
It's
think,
it's
yeah,
just bad.
brother. They think the thing is, they think they're self-appointed to teach us and save us from ourselves with their knowledge of how they're going to figure out whether the Earth is a globe or not, and they're too stupid to realize that the scientific method is not the thing to use. This is the problem, brother. These are the kind of morons we deal with, all the way from the average person up into the most educated person. Even people that allegedly search for "quote unquote" exoplanets are too stupid to know any of this stuff.
Well, they spent the first, 18 years of their life catching up on quote unquote human history and human knowledge, and then they go off in their specialized field to go to very
Exactly. Like
specific. Yeah.
we had a guy who was an astrophysicist specializing in the finding and classification of exoplanets. And the dude didn't even know the first rung of the cosmic distance ladder. These are the kind of morons we're dealing with, bro. He has no idea what he's doing. He could be fed any kind of data, and he just sits there and puts it out like a stupid person that's no different than a temp that says, hey, when the A button flashes, press the B button. That's about his intelligence.
I had a friend like you who, I know I'm no saint, but I had a friend like you. If you ever brought something up to him and he wasn't privy to it, he would always bring up something sort of parallel to it with extra information. I don't know, man. I
Okay.
need, you're here to learn. I'm here to learn. I need to have more level conversations. I got to be in my bonnet. I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking the bullshit stories, but you seem to have this in your back pocket, always wanting to substantiate these stories as if they're real. When it comes down to it, you admit that you're just believing that they're real. I don't. I think you want to have your cake and eat it too.
I mean, I have first person observations of our spacecraft working in the way that they're described to work, and that tends to be the crux of my understanding. But
Sorry,
that's
Josh.
just me.
That's
But I'm not going to make
untrue.
that
That's
assertion
untrue, Josh.
and what?
That's not true. Come on, I brought this up yesterday in terms of what actual evidence there is of any of these craft, any of these probes going to any of these places, and there is none. Beyond
I
the odd
disagree with that.
CGI image or
I mean,
attempted video, there's
all of the
absolutely
trajectories are
nothing.
public. Like an exercise I did during grad school was I built an antenna to downlink imagery from NOAA satellites because they're not encrypted.
Yeah, there's no evidence for any of these fantastical claims about robots on Mars, robots going to the sun, robots going to a star. None of that is real. We all know that it's not real. And I mean, you sound like you're trying to be a nice guy, which is fine, but everyone in here already understands that none of that is real. So it's almost like you're just trying to convince yourself at this point. Because all of us understand that in order for any of those stories to be remotely true, it necessitates a physical geometry of the surface that we do not have, right? And it's like you know this as well, because whenever this subject is brought up, you avoid it, right? You cannot even discuss, let alone substantiate the base assumption of all of your stories, which is that the surface of the earth that we live on is curving commensurate to a 3959 radius ball. And if that is not happening, Josh, you would have to be honest with yourself and say, well, then, yeah, all the things I'm saying consequently cannot be true. And you're not even making an attempt to substantiate that. You're jumping right to the pinnacle of this house of cards, which has no foundation, right? So, I mean, you're fine to be here and talk to us and stuff, but really, I mean, I can't I I can't imagine that you don't understand what we're actually saying here, which is like, I know you say you're not trying to convince anyone, but it's like you're trying to convince yourself because we all know that this fantasy globe in space story is just that, a fantasy. Now, I don't know what it is you're doing in your work or your day job, but you can't say, I've seen it. You've seen none of it. You've seen arguably data on a screen with no idea of where it's coming from. I mean, these people are on interview with people saying they don't have any kind of observation or physical knowledge of where these objects are, where they are purported to be. So none of this is real. None of this going to Mars or sending a robot into deep space. None of that is happening. And really, I would ask before you go on talking about those things, you would have to make an attempt to substantiate that they are leaving a globe like you're claiming. Because so far, all the empirical data is telling us that that's not the case. We don't have any curvature. So we can't have little robots blasting off from a curved ball into space. That can't be the case, right? So sorry to burst the bubble, And I'm not trying to say that your work has no value and that you're not setting up, I don't know, communications for people. That could still all be happening, not to take anything away from your work. But it's certainly not taking place on a 39-59 mile radius ball hurtling through an infinite vacuum. If that were the case, we would have some evidence of that, when we don't. At best, what you tell us is, oh, you could apply to go to a radio telescope in Spain and maybe they'd let you hear the robots on Mars. Like, dude, come on. Are you serious? In 2025, this is what we have to resort to know that we live on a spinning ball? Just hearsay stories from unaccountable, unaudited organizations that say they're doing Star Wars sci-fi stuff when they can't even measure 8 inches per mile squared of surface curvature, but they can travel hundreds of thousands of miles with little robots and take samples and send them back to Earth. It's Star Wars on one hand and Dumb and Dumber on the other. Can't measure Earth curve, can't explore the galaxy. It's just contradictory nonsense because it's just propaganda. Not to say what you're doing necessarily is propaganda. Your work, I'm sure, has real world impact and benefit, but it's certainly not in the technical backdrop of what you're purporting it is, because the geometry that is required for that does not exist. And I would really like to hear you, after the amount of time that you've spent here, address that point. Because surely you would agree logically that if the geometry of the globe does not exist, then the globe does not exist. Therefore, all these stories ancillary to the globe, such as space exploration around a globe, consequently cannot exist. I'm sure logically you would agree with that. Therefore, the curvature being in contention is really the thing you should be addressing if you have an interest in purporting that this whole thing is true. Okay?
The last line there is important. I don't have an interest in purporting that's true.
Okay. Well, then I would recommend that you stop suggesting that it is true by talking about we have satellites going here and going there, because whenever you say that, you are implicitly, explicitly making the claim that it is all true, when we know that it's not by direct measurement. So that's not to say you shouldn't hang around here and you shouldn't talk and ask questions, do all that stuff. But you can't, on the one hand, say, hey, we're going to space and we're doing all these things that NASA claim we're doing around a globe. And then at the same time say, I'm not arguing for a globe. Yes, you are. By pushing this propagandistic nonsense that flies in the face of observable, measurable reality as every human being on Earth knows it to be, you are implicitly, explicitly pushing this fantasy, whether you know it or not, whether you mean to or not.
Can I say something just for a second? I don't have a lot of time, but just for food for thought. So, orbital propagation models are built off of WGS84. So just like what A.I Overlord was talking about with regards to the cosmic distance ladder that the astrophysicists didn't know about, WGS84 is built on the same or similar a chain of requirements. And if you walk the dog all the way back to its original premise, you're going to find the same thing that we're talking about today. Like SGP84 built off of WGS84. It's an arbitrary coordinate reference system, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's a nice guy or whatever, but I mean, the fact is, you can't push space stories and then say I'm not arguing for a globe. Yes, you are.
So
I
I'd
mean,
like, if you don't mind, Wolfgang, I'd like to hear Mr. Ingersoll reply to Yoder. So please, Mr. Ingersoll, do you have Do you have commentary to share with Yoder there?
If he can't reply, he's taking care of kids. I mean, that's totally
Oh, okay. I
understandable.
may have missed that. No. I may have missed him saying that. If he said he's taking care of kids, that's 100% understandable. That's not a.
So maybe we have some kind of genuine person here we could talk to. That'd be cool. Is there anybody else? Lewis is here. Methuselah. Anybody but Josh would be amazing. VLTK. Glad you have supporters, Josh. They love you. Ent Monk. What'd you say, Neil? Kopsky's back. Love you.
I was kind of interested in the satellites there that Josh was talking about because I had put up my own there for dish. You have your 110, 119, and 129. Those are those dishes that have the 3 eyeballs. And then I had a special one since I live close to Canada. I had 91 where I could grab the Sunday ticket. So I know about, and those dishes, they just point up a little bit like you're pointing to a tower down my street.
Yeah. The higher the latitude, the more horizontal they go. Typically, I mean, there are going to be some cases where there are going to be some orbital propagation that puts them at an inclination that sends them close to what's called a polar orbit. In which case you could aim them up higher. But most of these things are said to be orbiting above the equator. So it's going to be facing south from you, or north if you're in the south.
Yeah, sorry, Yoder. I was just going to add in. So the more north you are, the more your dish would look like it's pointing, like you say, to an antenna down the road, or the alternative, the further south of the equator you are, then the same phenomenon it would.
Yeah, so like Globies will show us like 2 pictures, one of images of people getting reception from Ecuador with their satellite TV pointed straight up, and then people in Canada pointed more horizontally for the same satellite TV. Ignoring the fact that like if you've been to a third world country in South America, people take these massive satellite dishes like what's shown in these images, and they hang their clothes to dry on them. It has nothing to do with TV reception, at least for the meme.
I don't think I've seen that meme.
Okay.
But it is interesting here that obviously he's admitted to having some research grant that he's attempting to obtain to study us, and he goes to bat for us. So I sincerely appreciate his honesty, but I'm a little more curious as to.
Please, I'm sorry. Like going to bat, I mean, that is just so obviously a ploy. Please. Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, those big bad Globers, they think you guys are dumb. This is the other side of the coin of Mansky from yesterday, Kopsky, who's like, did you guys know that other people think you're dumb? Do you not see that this is just a snake oil salesman version of that? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue with your thought, by all means.
Yeah, so anyway, it'll be interesting to see who. He's already mentioned a former executive of Google, and it'd be interesting to see a little more of this. Who, what, when, where, how, and why. That, because it is interesting here that I do detect in him what what I detect from people who are doing research that is not here to actually learn and discuss the topic, that he's definitely here with an intention on a purpose. And so, frankly, all of our breath on talking to him about the subject is wasted. He's not here to actually talk about the topic. He's here for whatever that research is. And
that's my feeling as well.
When you're surrounded by all the belief, okay? When you're surrounded in this industry by the power and technology of belief, this topic is absolutely 100% interesting, a curiosity. Like, it is such a bizarre canard that it is absolutely interesting to somebody like this. I totally get the mindset because I was there.
Yeah, but his line of questioning leads me to think that he's making some kind of research, which is, I think, this is what Mr. Barrington was talking to. That's how I feel.
Yeah, he
maybe
admitted
for marketing.
Yeah, he said that in 2027 he's doing an IRC, whatever exactly that means for a conference. So he's admitted to it. He's told us a timeline. He's told us that some of the grant money might be coming from a former executive of Google. So he's been transparent. So I'm going to give him A+ for transparency. So
I smell cap. Right. So it's an evaluation of our thought processes. But what he seemed to, when he was asked, what is our position, basically, that was the first question asked of him. He said, oh, it's because you don't see the curvature, it's flat. But it's a bit more than that, because we actually measure. It's actually being measured whether or not it's flat or not. It's not just we look and we don't see it. They was a bit basic on that. He didn't seem to speak enough to that we actually painstakingly taking the time out to go and check and measure over a given distance. So it's not something that you just look at with your eyes and then you don't see curvature, that's it. Because it can be deceiving. So you make sure. That's all. So
yeah,
Josh,
every time he describes it, he forces himself to be dismissive to frame it in that way. Yet he says
putting psychological distance between the thing that's causing psychological harm in you. It's a total ego protection.
Yeah. And he was pulled up on that by saying, you all, y'all. That was a perfect timing to pick him up on that, because he's excluding himself from the experience that we all have and we all know. So well done anyway. I thought it was good. He deserved. We treated him amicably, and that was that. I don't think we were harsh on him.
Yeah, I don't think he's nefarious at all.
We just
curious.
dealt with him. Yeah, we just dealt with him fairly. The logic was pressed to him. If you haven't got the radius of the Earth, and that would be a Wolfgang Psyclone, if you don't have that dialed in, you can't claim the Earth to be a globe. Therefore, whatever you're making isn't going to where you think it is. You might be making it, but it's not going there. So you can't claim we have satellites in space. If you do that, then you're doing that disingenuously, because you know that you don't know that they're up there. You're guessing, or just what's the word I'm looking for? Guessing and believing. That's it.
Yeah. Well, he believes he knows and thinks he knows.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he
No,
has
but this is the
an
problem,
intent to
though,
deceive.
because
Not at all. No way.
well, but to be fair, though, and this is why I would step in, is because it is disingenuous. Because on the one hand, saying he's not trying to prove a globe, but on the other hand, all the stories he's telling are exactly told to persuade of that notion, and he's not actually saying this is what I think I know. When pushed, he is actually saying I know this. And we had this conversation yesterday when India was asking him about the nature of the sun. And we said the same thing to him. Well, I said exactly that to him. I said, would it be more fair to characterize what you're saying as you believe you know, or you think you know what these things are, but you wouldn't actually say you definitively know? He was like, doubled down. He's like, nah, I know. So
yeah,
I don't
that
mind
was
the
the
guy
end of
being
it for
here.
me. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Wolfgang. I was just gonna continue on with your thought. But I just wanted to give you amazing Kudos for both yesterday and today, your incredible patience, adherence to the topic, and so on. Indio replayed, or he posted that audio last night and replayed some of the audio from that, because for me that was like the end, like, for me, because the way he treated both you and Indio was so incredibly rude, while also saying, I'm not here to argue. I 100% applaud you for calling him out on that disingenuous, use snake oil salesman nonsense. I get it. A bunch of people here want to be your buddy, Josh. You got so many buddies. You can DM all of them. They love you. You love us and they love you. I'm not one of them, as we know. So thanks, Psyclone. Love it.
No, you're very welcome.
I
No,
relate
thank you.
with him personally,
And
so
and and yeah, I'm sure, but I'm sure this is
No punches.
discombobulating. I'm sure it's discombobulating for him, because a person like him, I'm sure, goes into these spaces and has a raptured audience waiting to hear about the space stories and what robots have been sent to what light in the sky and what they know, as if he's some shamanistic priest come down from on high to the Amazonian tribes to regale them with infinite wisdom. When it's the total opposite here. Not only are people not enthralled or raptured, we're calling it out as bullshit, because we know that's what it is, at least in the setting that he is trying to insinuate all this is taking place, without actually arguing that that's what he's arguing. So it's a kind of underhand way of convincing an audience of the globe without actually having to confront the fundamental arguments that we're having here, which is about the geometry of the globe, just bypassing all of that and going straight to the space stories. So I know, well, some people have time for that, but personally I don't. It's like, well, we could sit here till the cows come home talking about the Dungeons and Dragons rule of space exploration and satellite fantasies. But if we've got none of the geometry that requires, then it's not an argument. How are we going to waste our time? So that's what
yeah,
annoys me about. He's not just harmlessly like regaling space stories. There's an intention to promote the globe space fantasy without actually
that's his
having
job.
to have it scrutinized. Well,
Yeah,
that
that's
well,
his
that
job.
might be his
He's an
job. Maybe that's his
evangelist
job.
for
But
his
here,
product.
Here, it's not his job. Here, his job is to provide some evidence for his claims, and if he can't, well, then don't make the claim.
Good point. So maybe the point of our discussion should focus on the epistemics of this and the philosophy of mathematics behind what he understands from a more technical standpoint.
And well, to me, it's not getting into the mathematics or the philosophy of what he's saying. It's prove the geometry of the Earth that you claim this is taking place on and
Yeah,
is
that's epistemics.
essential for the story. Because if that's not the case, if that geometry isn't there, then none of these stories hold up. I mean, that's not to say that there's not some alternative possibilities in terms of high altitude technologies. That's not to say that. But that's not where he's coming at it from. He's coming at it from globe in space. And that's what I have a
Yeah,
problem with low key pushing, but being entirely unable to actually defend or evidence.
good point. Yep, you're right. Yeah.